has gone on TVs with satellite channels, gaming systems and other entertainment at the Manston processing centre. The facility only houses migrants for an average of up to 48 hours after arriving in Kent, before they are sent off to hotels and other government accommodations. A Home Office spokesman has told GBNews the majority of expenditure occurred under the previous government. It was used on TV monitors which provide information and instructions for those at Manston. The new government is now reviewing this spend. The Chancellor has welcomed new figures that show the economy has grown more than expected in the first 3 months of the year. She's been meeting workers and giving an address at the Rolls-Royce factory in Derby this morning, as new figures show the GDP increased by 0.7% between January and March, slightly stronger than economic forecasts. The Chancellor says it proves the government is moving in the right direction, but accepts there's much more to do. US President Donald Trump has arrived in the United Arab Emirates today for the last leg of his first major foreign trip. It's understood that he's likely to deepen cooperations with the UAE on artificial intelligence after hailing plans by Doha to invest $10 billion in a US military facility during his trip to Qatar. The two countries have finalised a technology framework agreement that's expected to be signed later on today. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in an hour's time.
Thank you very much for that. I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs Co with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, my panel of journalists and former spin doctor Joe Phillips, and alongside her, the chairman of the Great British Political Action Committee, Ben Habib. Welcome to both of you. We just had a fascinating conversation before this programme aired. We were talking about, what you wear when you're not at work and you're not suited and booted. And I was explaining that I can more often than not be found in a slanket. And guess what? Ben Habib had no idea, ladies and gents, what a slanket is. I can't believe how out of touch some people are. He then went on to say, and he'll get embarrassed about this, he then went on to say, that sounds quite naughty. I've got to say, many of you will be sitting there watching this tonight in a slanket or two. I hate to burst Ben Habib's bubble, but they are the complete opposite of what he may imagine them to be. I don't even think I did explain what one is. Anyway, look, we've got more pressing matters to talk about than blankets and slankets, but it is quite cold tonight, though, isn't it? I want you to join the conversation all the usual ways. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. You can go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay, or of course you can tweet or you can X me. Let's start with some good news then, shall we? Growth figures. We've been pontificating about what will happen to the UK economy. There's even been some people suggesting we might have gone into potential recession, but oh no, ladies and gents. Instead, we had growth of 0.7%. This, of course, is for the first quarter. It was predicted to have been 0.6, so better than expected. Rachel Reeves speaking out about that. Let's listen to what Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, had to say.
We're set to be the fastest growing economy in the G7 in the first 3 months of this year. And that's incredibly welcome. But I know that there is more to do. The cost of living crisis continues to affect families right across our country. I understand that, and I hear that. But despite the challenges that we face, our economy is strong.
Are you feeling optimistic today?
No, I think she, as ever, was talking unadulterated nonsense. First things first. Our government's obsession and successive administrations' obsession with looking at GDP, I think, has been a false obsession. They should have been looking at productivity in this country. They should have been looking at GDP per capita. They should have been looking at the number of people who are actually in work, how many people are not having to rely on universal credit in order to survive. Our national debt needs to be under control. Taxation needs to be at a level which people can afford to pay their taxes and then have enough left over to live on. And every metric, with the exception of this one metric in the last quarter, is moving in an adverse direction. And I think perhaps the worst metric of the lot, I was horrified to see this, and I know I've talked about this number on this programme before, is the number of people now on universal credit. Now, before the pandemic, there were about 3 million people on universal credit. When we came out, and I've been monitoring it, you know, to some extent since then, we came out of the pandemic with over 6 million people on universal credit to a greater or lesser extent. Last year, that had gone up.
Some of those people are being work.
So, yeah, 1.5 million of those 6 were in work. 1.5 million of the people who are on universal credit are still in work. But the figure now is 7.7 million people. That is a sign that the United Kingdom literally is not working. And then I think the other really bad metrics that you won't hear Rachel Reeves revealing to the public is that government debt is accelerating away from even what the OBR had forecast when she made those massive spending obligations in the budget last year when she raised employers' national insurance. So she is now going to have to face either an increase in taxation or a cutting welfare and benefits. Obviously, she needs to get welfare and benefits under control. But this is a government, actually, frankly, that is out of control as far as our economy is concerned. We have been practicing the same economic model for the last 30 years, and they keep doing more of the same and not realising that it's getting worse and worse and worse. And what they absolutely have to wake up to, which the Trump administration has woken up to, is that we need less government spending, we need less taxation. They've got to have the courage to cut taxes on the working middle classes and small and medium-sized enterprises in particular. They have to deregulate the economy, they have to ditch net zero, and then you will get the coming together of an economic ecosystem that will be able to stand on its own 2 feet and genuinely grow. But the idea that you get 1 quarter of actually what in historic terms would be regarded as anemic economic growth and then start banging the drum talking about we've turned the corner is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, but to be fair to her, she did say as well it was a bit too early to be getting the champagne corks out also as well.
She said we turned a corner.
She said we were beginning to turn
We haven't turned any corner. This country is on the precipice of economic disaster.
It's like one of those corners. Anyone that's rang for a taxi, you know, if you've ever called for a taxi, you're sitting there, where's my taxi, where's my taxi? It's just around the corner. I think it's one of those kind of taxi corners that she might be referring to, never-ending corner. But anyway, go on, Jo.
Well, I think, you know, it is... She didn't say it is time for celebration, and I don't think anybody has. And I think, you know, Mel Stride, who's the Shadow Chancellor, quite rightly said this is not a time for popping champagne corks. And, of course, it is anemic growth, but it is going in the right direction. I think the challenge will really come in the next quarter, which will be after the increase in employers' national insurance kicks in.
That's already had an impact, Jo.
Well, it will do on some, but we won't see it properly.
No, not in those figures it won't do, because that was the first quarter.
I mean, businesses, in advance of NI going up, businesses have been sacking people.
Yes, I know.
That's why universal credit is 7.7 million people.
I'm absolutely aware of that, but we will be able to see when we see the figures again for the next quarter. I mean, interestingly, completely independent, the senior UK economist at HSBC said she was quite cheered by the figures because she said business investment is up nearly 6% on the quarter and the service sector is doing so as well. And it may have an impact on interest rate. I think the problem is that, you know, OK, we can nitpick about whether it's good, bad or indifferent. The reality for most people is that they are seeing shops, pubs, hairdressers, you know, if you like, the beating heart of high streets in so many places closing for a variety of reasons, the increase in employers' national insurance, increase in council tax and so on and so forth. So people don't feel the benefit from this. But if this sends a signal that actually, you know, things are better, then that has got to be good, and we shouldn't talk it down. It's a direction of travel.
I'm not talking it down, but there's got to be a connection.
Being negative, that's her point. That's what you're trying to say to him, isn't it, Jo?
There's got to be a connection with reality.
Yeah, but the reality
0.7% GDP growth in a quarter was what we used to hit repeatedly in the early 2000s. Yeah, but... We haven't had GDP... Jo, let me just finish. We haven't had GDP growth per capita for 12 quarters on the trot. Yeah. This country has not grown. We are getting poorer.
But you can't blame that on this government.
I absolutely blame it on a economic policy that was set in the Blair years that every administration has followed, which is higher regulation, higher taxation, more government borrowing, more government intervention, more spending, coupled with this obsession with GDP growth, which has given them cause to, in part, deliver mass migration, because they think the more people we get in this country, the faster GDP will grow. And no one's made the connection between productivity, the need for people to be rewarded well for the work that they do, and for those who are not working, not to have the incessant and slanket, or what did you call it, the slanket of the state around their
Can you ask somebody to send in a photograph so we can put him out of his misery?
I've got to tell you, because I am, whilst these guys talk, I multitask, so I do. So I look at what you guys are saying as well, and you're making me laugh, because on Twitter, the thing that's got you talking is what a slanket is. So I've got people writing in telling me what a slanket is, and I've got other people saying that they've no idea what a slanket is, that you're all Googling slankets. If you don't know what a slanket is, I don't know where you've been, ladies and gents. It'll save an absolute fortune. You don't need to put your heating on. You can just get inside one of those things. You will be so toasty, you won't believe it. And I can't believe how out of touch you are not knowing what it is. It reminds me, many years ago, I did newspaper reviews on a different channel with Michael Portillo.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we were talking about favourite books. And he was kind of indulging the viewers with the tales of his favourite book, and it was, you know, very highbrow. And when it came to my turn and they asked what was my favourite book, I remember saying the Argos catalogue. And I remember Michael Portillo looking at me as though I was like from an alien with about 10
But
heads.
he was probably thinking Argos, you know, in Greek mythology.
Yeah, but anyone, I mean, I can assure you what I was thinking was back to the heady days of a childhood. You used to go to Argos, you used to go up to the counter. Yeah, and these things were like doorstops, and you used to go through them, and you used to circle what you wanted from Santa. And Santa never really seemed to get my memos. I don't really think he spent too much time flicking through that catalogue, because I didn't ever get that Mr. Frosty. I've never got over it. Anyway, look, I do digress. If you've got a picture of you in a slanket and you want to show it to
or someone else
feel
in a
free.
slanket.
Yes, of course. Look, coming up after the break, I'll let him compose himself. He's got images running through his head, I can tell you.
Well, I think it's a blanket, isn't it?
No.
You did not think it was a blanket before the start of this
Well, that's what I've
programme.
come round to.
I can tell you that's why I need to give him a few seconds to compose himself, I think. After the break, we need to talk about EU-UK relations. There's a big summit coming up. Long story short, should we have closer relations, closer ties with the EU or not? I'll see you in 2.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Recently, Meghan Markle did a cookery show.
She did.
What happened? Because you made a certain comment and she...
I was asked by a national newspaper to basically review the show, what I thought from a chef's perspective. So I did, and really the opinions came across quite strong.
What kind of things did you say? Can you say?
Well, I didn't think it was a great show, to be honest with you. I felt that it was a bit forced and fake and stuff, which I've been on this show on GBNews and explained that before. But I think the problems with Meghan was that Netflix are looking for things to do with her. You know, she's not going to be racing cars, and she's not going to be doing this, and she's not going to be doing that. So I think they've kind of thrown her into the whole kind of cookery thing. Make a nice show about it and, you know, try and recoup some money.
And in it, there was a potential that you may have said that she didn't appear to be a great chef, or she might not be able to cook, or...
Well, my understanding...
Recount what you can say, and then we don't want you to get in trouble.
No, I think that, again, I go back to what I just said then. I think they've kind of thrown her into something. They thought to themselves what they're going to do with Meghan next. And basically they've kind of thought, well, most people can cook. Let's create a cookery show. Let's make her the new Martha Stewart. Let's try and recoup some money. Let's do, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to bring out pans and knives and tea towels, as well as what she's already launched already. And, yeah, I think it's from a chef's perspective, it's very disappointing that streaming sites are, you know, backing people who have got really no experience in the industry and don't really have the right to be teaching people how to cook.
Well, she did make a really nice sort of like fruit rainbow, where she put all the fruit in the thing, in one on the other. And...
That must have been episode 1, because I stopped after episode 1.
Though, do you?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs Co. I've got Joe Phillips and Ben Habib alongside me. One of my viewers has just written in and said, you're just talking about the decline of the high street where I live. They've just said, you know, it's nail bars popping up all over the place, barber shops popping up all over the place. I hear you. I think that's been repeated in a lot of different places. One of my other viewers saying, oh, OMG, are you seriously getting overexcited about 0.7% GDP growth? I've got to tell you, Germany, they had plus 0.2%, France plus 0.1%. So actually, in comparison to the rest of the G7, we are pretty much on track to be the fastest growing one for the last quarter. Anyway, pack it in with your naysaying.
But that's because no, it's nothing to do with being negative.
Yes,
it's because all of Europe and the United Kingdom are following absolutely sclerotic economic models. High regulation, high taxation, massive energy costs. Germany has literally committed economic harakiri on the altar of net zero.
Well, anyway, before you spontaneously combust, let's move on from the tales of woe of the economy, because it's your other favourite topic. I've got a few of your favourite topics tonight.
I mean, to look around Europe and say they're all doing worse than we are, therefore we're all right. I mean, it's just the lowest form of self-congratulation.
Before, Ben, about how Rachel Reeves talked down business, talked down the economy when she first...
Joe, they're doing a lousy job.
Well,
if we give them succor and say you're doing great, 0.7% was terrific, they'll go on doing the same rubbish again and again.
It's not about the government, it's about actually being a bit more positive.
No, you do not stimulate the economic organism simply by talking optimistically. You've actually got to deliver policies...
You do not stimulate the economic organism. Now, there's a quote you
and you do
often
not
hear at this
stimulate
time
debate by going on and on about the same topic. So let's move on. EU states there is about to be a summit that starts imminently, looking at how do we reset relations then between the EU and the UK. It's getting a little bit tricky though, because already there seem to be problems brewing, because EU states are demanding more and more deeper and longer access to British fishing water, and also more broader rights when it comes to youth mobility. Ben Habib, what should happen next in the relationship between us and the EU?
We should terminate the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. We should terminate the Withdrawal Agreement. We should impose sanctions on the European Union. We should take Northern Ireland back into the Union of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We should deregulate, and we should take them to task on the international trading. In international trading, we should compete with them head to head, and we should stop sidling up to. We just discussed how Germany grew at 0.2%, how France was behind us, and Starmer wants to get closer to these people. It's their economic model that we've been practicing for the last 30 or 40 years that has got us into the trouble in which we now find ourselves. We don't need to get closer to the EU, which, by the way, with which we run a £100 billion deficit every single year, causing massive pressure on sterling. The only way in which we can alleviate that is essentially selling British assets to foreigners, so that there's some demand for for sterling to keep it up. Otherwise, we would see a run on sterling, then massive inflation and a collapse in our economy. There is nothing good, and there never has been, frankly, about the trading relationship between the United Kingdom and the European Union. And it's significantly down to the fact that the German exports are flattered by an artificially weak euro, because Germany, if it had its own currency, would be much stronger. It's all pulled down by the other countries in the European Union. What we need to do as a country is stop trying to be... what our governors need to do is stop trying to govern through international arrangements and start governing for local benefit. And that comes from making the United Kingdom competitive, not sidling up to the European Union. Everything you hear from Starmer right now about his reset with the EU is all theatre. Everything he is going to offer on the 19th of May when he goes to this summit is going to be a capitulation. He's going to capitulate on defence. He's going to put our armed forces under the boot of the European Union, under Brussels, through the European Defence Union, accepting European foreign policy. He's going to give up our fishing rights. He's going to align us from a regulatory perspective with the European Union. And he's going to, having said that he's going to crack down on immigration, he's going to open up the borders again to freedom of movement. Keir Starmer does not believe in governing this country for the benefit of this country. He believes in governance through the European Union. He is a Europhile. He will never change that. He wanted a second referendum. He is not pro-British, he is pro-EU. He was caught, and the last thing I'm going to say, he was caught when he thought he was off camera in September 2023 in Montreal, saying that if I were ever to become Prime Minister, I will align ourselves so closely with the EU that people won't be able to tell the difference. Now, what we've got to do is wake up, smell the coffee, ditch the EU and do what Trump is doing. Put the United Kingdom first. Impose tariffs, if necessary, on the flipping EU, with which we run, as I just mentioned, a £100 billion deficit per annum. We need to start putting this country first.
Right, have you stopped?
I'll stop now.
Right, now, shut up for a minute.
Go on, get in there.
Well, I would actually like to see Keir Starmer come out and be much more pro-Europe and much more upfront about our relationship with Europe. Brexit has been a disaster on
we never got Brexit.
You've just had about 10 minutes of uninterrupted
carry on, ignore
garbage.
him, go on.
So one of the things, in fact, on Martin's programme that I was on a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about fishing rights, and we spoke to a fish merchant in Devon. And he said from the day that we left the European Union, his bureaucracy had gone up millions and millions of times. So he was having fish fished in British waters, exported mainly to the continent and being sent back for tiny little mistakes or stuff. So it was no good. It had gone off. It was a waste of time. You look at pharmaceuticals, you look at food standards, you look at the impact that Brexit has had on so many businesses in this country, and it is ridiculous, Ben, with the greatest of respect, to think that, you know, a government can govern this tiny little island when we are part of a global world, when we've got right now...
absolute
wait
rubbish.
a minute. Don't be rude. There's no need to be rude.
But that's... You just told me that I talked unadulterated rubbish earlier, and I'm going to tell you you're talking rubbish.
Right.
We're the 5th largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
The idea that we can't govern ourselves for our benefit is the Remainers' narrative. The way you hijack a nation-state is destroy its self-confidence. You talked about confidence earlier, building confidence.
Okay.
Rachel Reeve talking nonsense about 0.7%.
You can hijack a nation-state, as Russia has done to Ukraine. Ukraine is part of the mainland of Europe. Defence and security is incredibly important. The impact of what has happened in Ukraine will have an impact on us and our European partners. If you can't move around, whether you're an artist, a musician, somebody in the creative industries, if you can't get food and goods transported and exchanged easily without this unnecessary bureaucracy, and I would bet your bottom, or my bottom dollar even, I'd bet on your slanket, that if you were to go to a referendum now, the fine number of people who voted to be in the majority to leave, actually it would be completely different
So,
now.
Jo, we haven't left the European Union.
Well,
we haven't left. Northern Ireland is still in the European Union, single market for goods.
We've got the best. We've got the worst of both worlds.
Well, we probably have.
Yes,
but you can't say Brexit has failed.
Well, it has failed.
Because we haven't actually left the damn organisation.
So
we are still aligned. We are still aligned aligned as far as state aid, competition, employment, and crucially, the environmental regulations that the EU imposes.
At the moment,
we are still committed.
Ben, this is according to the Financial Times. British supermarkets have lobbied hard for a veterinary deal to smooth the flow of food, fish and animals between the UK and EU. So while we're talking about fishing rights, we need to be able to make sure that anyone fishing in this country can get them across to Europe.
We can't set an agenda which puts this country first, which delivers prosperity for this country, because we are still hitched at the hip with the EU. Only if we leave, if we terminate the trade and cooperation agreement, ditch the withdrawal agreement, take Northern Ireland back, and start making policies for the United Kingdom, can you then test whether Brexit is going to be a success or not?
Brexit is a disaster. Overturn the referendum.
At the moment, Remainers have hijacked Brexit on the way out. It hasn't been delivered, and Starmer's about to betray it even further.
Well, I'm going to hijack this because I need to go to a break because we have a lot to get through on this programme. Coming up, Keir Starmer in Albania tonight, talking about return hubs. It was all a bit embarrassing, though. We'll have the details in 2.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews travel destinations forecast.
Whilst widespread sunny skies return to the UK, rain clears Italy but pushes into Greece, where it will become increasingly windy by Friday. Fairly breezy for the Canaries, but it's mostly fine here with partly cloudy skies across Spain, Portugal into Gibraltar. 1 or 2 showers, otherwise plenty of sunshine. But for Italy, it's been very unsettled here, particularly in the south. We do have the rain and the wind pushing now into Greece, where it will be unsettled for a few days before turning brighter later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews travel destinations forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Over the coming days, high pressure remains dominating our weather, which means lots of dry, settled weather, lots more sunshine to come, though it's eastern areas where it can often be cloudy and a lot cooler, and it's all thanks to high pressure sitting to the north of the country, dragging in a northeasterly flow, so more of a breeze here and much more cloud too. And we'll see that pattern as we head through this evening and overnight. More cloud clipping into southern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England, and then towards dawn across central and southern parts. This cloud quite low at times, possibly even bringing some mist and fog, but many areas should remain dry, rather clear, but that does mean temperatures are going to slip away, particularly across Scotland, perhaps even some rural frost by the time we reach the early hours of the morning. So to start, it could be a little bit chilly, perhaps some low cloud across the very far northeast of the country, perhaps eastern parts of Aberdeenshire, but otherwise largely dry, clear and similar across Northern Ireland and northern parts of England, though once again low cloud creeping into eastern counties. Elsewhere across England and Wales, a fairly bright start once again, still a little bit chilly, but warming up nicely through the course of the day. Once again, particularly western areas feeling very warm in wall-to-wall sunshine, but across eastern areas, still that low cloud set to linger, still a decent breeze here too, so often feeling chillier with cloudier skies, but otherwise lots of warm sunshine, highs reaching around 23 degrees Celsius across the south. Then as we head into Saturday, the beginning of the weekend, likely a bit more cloud to start the morning, some mist and fog in places, but once again, eventually through the morning, we'll see it clear through, and by the afternoon, wall-to-wall blue skies, plenty of sunshine, but still a chance we could see that low cloud lingering across eastern areas, and it remains fairly similar as we turn into Sunday and Monday, with temperatures widely in the low 20s.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the M77 northbound at Junction 1, a traffic incident restricts off-slip access. Motorists should proceed with caution and allow extra travel time. The A470 between Nantgarv and Upper Boat remains closed due to environmental work, with diversions in place. In Northumberland, the A1 northbound experiences lane closures due to an overturned vehicle. Additionally, congestion on the A66 eastbound causes delays near the M6 interchange. And on the trains, delays disrupt both Avanti West Coast and Caledonian sleeper services between Lancaster and Carlisle. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs Co, and alongside me, I've got Joe Phillips and Ben Habib. We've been getting into all the topics that matter, growth and the economy in the growth. We've just been talking about UK-EU relations, but no, the thing that's got you all talking is slankets and Argos catalogues and Mr. Frosties. I can tell you now, Jason says, Michelle, in our house, we used to call the Argos catalogue the laminated book of dreams. Oh, Jason, I could live with you. You are my kind of man. And if you don't know what a slanket is, let me get Ben Habib out of his misery. This is a slanket, ladies and gents. There you go.
Okay.
That is a double slanket.
That looks very naughty.
I've got to say, yeah.
I think that's your mind.
I do have to say that is slightly more glamorous than the slankets that I'm referring to when I say I'm in my house in a slanket. My slanket has normally got, I don't know, a bit of coffee down the front, whatever my child has dribbled on me. It's all that kind of thing that goes on.
In the pockets.
Yes, and my mother is watching. Hello, Mum. She's got in touch and she said, Santa never got me a Mr. Frosty because we didn't have a fridge when I was growing up. That is very true. We didn't have a fridge.
So that's what you should have circled in the Argos catalogue.
A fridge.
A fridge.
That's what I was doing wrong. But I do have a fridge now, Santa. So, you know, you could always pop up with a Mr. Frosty, couldn't you? That would be nice, wouldn't it? Lots of you, though. That is the thing that's got you guys talking. We all like a trip down memory lane, don't we? But anyway, look, I'll tell you other trips that have taken place today. Keir Starmer, he has been in Albania. It was talking about so-called return hubs. It did get a little bit embarrassing, though. There was then a press conference because you had Keir Starmer, you had the leader of Albania talking about return hubs, and very, very quickly the Albanian chief basically popped up and said that's not going to be happening literally in Albania. There's a bit of an arrangement going on between them and Italy, but he says basically that that is a marriage that he's loyal to and he won't be repeating that in any other country. Anyway, Keir Starmer, these plans have come under a bit of criticism, Ben Habib. Some people are saying it's like Rwanda light, basically, and it's just a tip on the iceberg. Anyway, your thoughts?
It's precisely. It is Rwanda. I mean, Rwanda was never going to work, and I'm proud to say that the minute I heard of the Rwanda scheme, I called it out for the failure that it was going to be. And this is exactly the same thing. I mean, where do I start? You know, border control does not take place by deporting people. Deportations are what become necessary because your borders weren't enforced in the first place. What we've got to discover is the preparedness to actually stop people entering this country illegally. And those who get here on visas and then stay illegally when their visas have expired need then to be deported. But the only way we'll really be able to deport people at the numbers...
Sorry, whilst we're talking, by the way, this is the Albanian Prime Minister, and I don't want to trivialise such things, but that guy is ginormous, isn't he? Ben's putting his spectacles on. Yeah, absolutely ginormous.
He'd need a very big slanket, wouldn't he?
He would need a large slanket. 6'6". Anyway, I digress. Yeah. Carry on, Ben.
The only way, if deportation is a thing that we want to focus on, the only way of deporting people in large numbers from the United Kingdom is if we first ditch the Human Rights Act and we ditch the European Convention of Human Rights and the European Court of Human Rights, which will interfere always to defeat anything this government might wish to do, again, as we were discussing in the last segment, for the benefit of this country, because it's hitched to some European institution. And by the way, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, which we were discussing in the last segment, also obliges us to stay within the European Convention of Human Rights. If deportation is the answer that this country wants to hang its hat on, I don't think it's going to work in isolation, but if that's what it wants to hang its hat on, the prerequisite is to ditch the Human Rights Act, ditch the European Convention and ditch the European Court of Human Rights. And we then need to get
and
quite...
There's
more. And we need to get muscular.
Come on, Michelle, let's go to the
And we need to start getting muscular on the international stage with countries that habitually are sending us people illegally. We've got to withdraw aid. We've got to impose sanctions. We've got to stop trading with them. We've got to impose tariffs. We've got to become much, much tougher as a country.
Yes. Is that his Weetabix tonight, Auntie? I like it.
It's a great shame, isn't it, that since Brexit we lost access to the fingerprint database. Well, let's not go over that old cup of tea and reheat old tea leaves again. But we lost access to the European database, which had the fingerprints of convicted criminals, which would have made it a lot easier. If you got somebody turn up, you could look up and go, oh, hello, you've got a conviction.
Joe, anyone here illegally is a criminal. Anyone.
Well,
anyone here is illegally is a criminal. Yes.
Anyone has got the right to apply for asylum.
No.
We also lost the right of return. But let us go back to the original question that Michelle posed, not about Slankits or Argos catalogue, about the trip to Albania. You do have to wonder why Keir Starmer was there. I'm sure there were other things that he was discussing with the very lofty Mr. Rama. But Albania has always made it very clear that their arrangement with Italy, which incidentally is being challenged legally, is because of the proximity between Italy and Albania. Now, I might have got this wrong, but I believe the previous government had quite a successful conversation with the Albanian government about returning illegal migrants that had come here, and that seemed to bring the figures down.
Well, should we listen? Because I've got a clip, actually, of Keir Starmer. He was talking to Christopher Herp, who was also in Albania. Let's listen, shall we, to Keir Starmer.
What now we want to do, and we're having discussions on, talks on, is return hubs, which is where someone's been through the system in the UK, they need to be returned, and we have to make sure they're returned effectively, and we'll do that if we can through return hubs. So that's what the talk's about. I would say in this area, no single measure is going to be the measure that is, if you like, a silver bullet. By putting it all together, arrests, seizures, agreements with other countries, returning people who shouldn't be here, and return hubs, if we can, through these talks, to add to our armoury, will allow us to bear down on this vile trade and to make sure that we stop those people crossing the channel.
Carry on, Joe.
It's interesting, isn't it, return hubs, which is a completely different idea to the Rwanda scheme. But I do have to ask, you know, why is the Prime Minister there? If the conversation was about migration, then wouldn't it be better to send the Home Secretary or even the Foreign Secretary? You know, he's got EU summit, yes, that's fine, that's leaders. But, there is always a problem, and it's always a conundrum, I think, for all Prime Ministers. The more they do abroad, the more they're criticised for not dealing with stuff going on at home. But, and there are some things like, the trip to America, the various European summits and what have you, that have taken place where obviously he's got to be, and Ukraine. But you do wonder, why aren't some of these conversations taking place without offending Albania, but actually having conversations at a not necessarily lower level, but with the appropriate minister?
Well, it was incompetent to go to Albania with a proposition that the Albanians were going to reject.
Well,
it should have been tested before he got there.
Yes, which is why I'm a little bit surprised.
But he is incompetent. I mean, we have to recognise this.
He's not here to defend himself against what are basically insults.
But he is incompetent, because last year he was saying that we were going to tackle the illegal migration through busting the criminal gangs that smuggle these people across the border. Well, what happened to that? Now he's talking about hubs. Hubs is just a variation of Rwanda.
No, it's not.
And it won't work.
No, it's not.
And you said something very interesting. You said the Italian deal with Albania was being legally challenged. And that's the point. Any deal, any nation state seeks to do that's a member of the European Convention, where they're trying to protect their own nation state, the European Convention is going to step in, the court's going to step in, and it's going to override national governments.
Not necessarily.
And that's why we have to ditch the ECHR, and we need to get rid of the European Court of Human Rights. And if we did that, by the way, deportations would probably become academic, because then we would discover the courage, the confidence to actually enforce our borders. Borders exist for a reason. They need to be physically enforced. People try to enter your country illegally, they should be prevented physically from doing so.
And the rate of immigration went up since Brexit.
It's got nothing to do with Brexit.
Well, it has.
This has got...
You can't keep ignoring these things that are directly related to Brexit.
Are you talking about legal migration or illegal migration?
There are two conversations. One is the legal migration, and that soared
That's
after
because
Brexit.
Boris Johnson was asleep at the wheel.
Yes, well, you know what, you want to talk about incompetent prime ministers, there's one writ large.
Well, I'm not responsible for Boris Johnson's immigration policy.
But, you're putting everything on Keir Starmer. He hasn't even been in government a year.
Keir Starmer, unless people in Parliament, unless government in this country recognises that we have to start governing the United Kingdom for the United Kingdom. It's a fundamental, basic concept. And ditch things that prohibit us from doing so, ditch the argument that's always made, oh, it's international law that prevents it, or it's the European Convention that prevents
like
it.
American tariffs.
We can
ignore those?
We have to walk away from these conventions which are preventing the United Kingdom from being able to do what's in its own interest. These things are actually threatening Western civilization.
Well,
they are threatening Western civilization.
It would also include deals with America.
I just want to bring some clarity to this just before I go to a different topic, because there are so many different ways of doing things. So the Rwanda deal, so I'll just keep up at the back here because there's 3 different types here. So Rwanda, what would happen is, this was the plan. If you came here, you would have been sent there for processing and then you essentially would have lived there. So that's Rwanda. Then what you've got now is this
with no right of appeal or return, ever.
So now what you've got now is what he's now calling return hubs. And what that would have meant is if you've applied, basically you've failed, you've exhausted all your routes, then you would have been sent off to a third country to go and live there. Italy, what they're doing in Italy, and I found this quite interesting, they're sending people over to Albania or trying to be processed, and then if you're successful, then you would go back and live in Italy. So that's the 3 kind of models that people are discussing. You can make your own mind up about which one, if any, you prefer and which one, if any, you actually would prefer. But the key point, as Ben Habib makes, in my humble opinion, is actually if you just literally controlled your borders, you wouldn't need to be doing any of these options above in the first place. But look, after the break, we've got lots to discuss. Stay with us and I'll see you in 2.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got Joe Phillips and Ben Habib. Lots of you getting in touch. I've got to tell you, there's not much strength of feeling for closer relations with the EU. I'm putting it mildly. There's some strong language.
That is surprising, isn't it?
There's some strong language coming through
audience.
there. No, all viewers are welcome on GB News. I can tell you something that also gets very strong opinions between you guys at home as well. Lucy Connolly, you'll all know who she is. Of course, she's the wife of the Tory councillor. She was sent to prison. She was found guilty. This is, of course, during the unrest in what happened with those little girls that were killed in Southport. Now, she was given a 31-month prison sentence. She wrote something awful. You know, you shouldn't say what she said on social media. She posted it. 31 months. Now, there was a court of appeal to look at whether or not that sentence should be reduced. Just to be clear, it wasn't looking at challenging the guilty verdict. It was about the severity of the sentence. That hearing hasn't yet reached an outcome. We'll expect the outcome tomorrow. What do you think the outcome might be?
Well, I don't know what the outcome on the appeal will be, but I can tell you, in my view, that she should never have gone to prison in the first place. So I hope that the outcome is very favourable, that she should be released immediately.
I mean, so when you say you don't think that she should have gone to prison, she pleaded guilty to the charge laid before her, and we do have... well, in fact, actually, you will have perhaps a different view on this. I was about to argue back, but what's your thoughts on it, Joe Phillips?
Well, we do have laws about inciting racial hatred.
She wasn't inciting racial hatred.
She was inciting violence. She said, mass deportation now, set fire to all the effing hotels full of the XXX, for all I care.
Yeah,
if that
for
makes
all
me
I care.
Racist, so be it.
For all I care.
So she's saying,
for all I care.
Set fire to.
For all I care. She wasn't saying go and set fire.
Well,
she was saying, for all I care, do what you will.
Well, I think
there are people.
There are people out there who are too stupid and too nasty who would have seen that as a green light to go and set fire.
You can't.
This is a woman who's supposed to be quite intelligent. Her husband has lost his seat since the May election, so he is no longer a councillor. She's presumably been around the block long enough. She's 31 years... no, she's older than that. She's 42. She was a childminder, apparently. She'd previously... So she pleaded guilty to inciting racial hatred. She knew exactly what she was doing. And I think it's quite right that she was sent to prison because it sends a message. The term may have been too long, but I think it sends a very clear message.
What's the message?
The message is you have to look at the consequences of what you say.
But there were no consequences.
Well,
she deleted her tweet an hour later.
How do you
know that there was consequences?
I'm not. But you have to. There were 300,000 times in 3.5 hours it was seen. We don't know whether somebody went out with the intention of setting fire to it. But if somebody makes it OK because it's on social media, that's wrong.
I'm not suggesting what she said is socially acceptable.
So she shouldn't say it.
It's repugnant to say what she said.
Yes.
But...
She wouldn't say it in a pub.
She should not be... But she should not be imprisoned for it. And
Why?
Why? Because it is not criminal.
It is criminal.
She's not inciting violence.
She
hasn't incited violence.
She pled guilty.
She may have pled guilty. There was also a chap called Peter Lynch who pleaded guilty when he was charged with violence, when actually all he had done was similar to her. He had held up placards with conspiracy theories on it and he'd shouted at the police. And he was put in jail for, I'm going by memory, 2 years and 8 months. But in any event, he hanged himself in prison in October because he couldn't take what was going, what was happening to him.
I don't think we should talk about that.
Why?
Because I'm not sure that that is the case.
That is absolutely the case. Peter Lynch hanged himself in prison.
Okay.
And I think we've got to shine a light on these things. Well, people went to prison. Starmer, this is where the guilt lies. After Rudakabana, who Starmer describes as a Welshman, which couldn't be which is the most inappropriate way to describe Rudakabana. He may have been a British citizen. He was not Welsh in the colloquial sense that Starmer wished to use the term and deflect away from who Rudakabana was. Starmer, instead of being honest about Rudakabana and getting up and telling the nation what had happened, he categorised everyone who was protesting as far right. He directed the criminal justice system to detain them, remand them, charge them, and find them guilty. It was the biggest example of politicised policing, criminal justice in this country.
The government cannot demand that people are found guilty.
That is precisely what he did.
It is not. Well, where's your proof?
Well, watch the clip, Joe.
Where is your proof?
Get the clip. Watch what Starmer said.
Right, I am going to
They will be
intervene.
apprehended,
Anyway,
they will be charged, and they will be
concerned,
imprisoned.
She deserved to go to prison. What she said was disgusting. It was unforgivable. She knows that. She's pled guilty to that at the earlier hearing. It may be that it was too long. It may be tomorrow at her sentencing, and we'll see what sort of a woman she is when she comes out.
I vaguely remember, and I'm just trying to find it, I vaguely remember Yvette Cooper saying that she basically presumed guilt, and she got into a spot of bother, if I remember rightly. I'm trying to test my memory.
The Home Office.
She had done a post, actually, that had said that all of these people, she regarded them as criminals, etc. And a lot of people had to point out, well, hold on a second, because you do have a trial system in this country, and you do have innocent before proven guilty.
Absolutely.
I'm almost out of time, but very, very quickly. He said, Ben Habib just said, what Lucy Connolly said was socially unacceptable. And you then jumped in and went, so she shouldn't have said it. Take it away from Lucy Connolly for a second. Are you saying that people shouldn't say or shouldn't be able to say, quote, socially unacceptable things?
He said socially unacceptable.
Yeah, and then you said, so she shouldn't have said it.
She shouldn't. I said she shouldn't have said it. She wouldn't have said it in public. But this whole thing about social media, there will be people...
It's a real quick question. Do you think that people should be able to say socially unacceptable things
not in public?
Or not?
No.
I mean, do you know how odd that sounds? So you don't think that anyone should be able to say something that people might find socially unacceptable? Really?
Not in public.
Yeah, that's the end of freedom of speech, and that's the end of democracy.
OK.
Say what you like in your home, but this is cowardly. Putting it on Twitter, putting it out like that.
If you can't say something that someone else might think is socially unacceptable...
Burn down the hotels.
Three girls were stabbed,
yes, I know
and one was nearly beheaded.
The conversation will have to continue as long as it's not socially unacceptable. Another day. Thanks to my panel. Have a good night, everybody. Don't go anywhere. They're a great programme up next, but I'll see you tomorrow. Night.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Over the coming days, high pressure remains dominating our weather, which means lots of dry, settled weather, lots more sunshine to come, though it's eastern areas where it can often be cloudy and a lot cooler, and it's all thanks to high pressure sitting to the north of the country, dragging in a northeasterly flow, so more of a breeze here and much more cloud too. And we'll see that pattern as we head through this evening and overnight. More cloud clipping into southern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England, and then towards dawn across central and southern parts. This cloud quite low at times, possibly even bringing some mist and fog, but many areas should remain dry, rather clear, but that does mean temperatures are going to slip away, particularly across Scotland, perhaps even some rural frost by the time we reach the early hours of the morning. So to start, it could be a little bit chilly, perhaps some low cloud across the very far northeast of the country, perhaps eastern parts of Aberdeenshire, but otherwise largely dry, clear and similar across Northern Ireland and northern parts of England, though once again low cloud creeping into eastern counties. Elsewhere across England and Wales, a fairly bright start once again, still a little bit chilly, but warming up nicely through the course of the day. Once again, particularly western areas feeling very warm in wall-to-wall sunshine, but across eastern areas, still that low cloud set to linger, still a decent breeze here too, so often feeling chillier with cloudier skies, but otherwise lots of warm sunshine, highs reaching around 23 degrees Celsius across the south. Then as we head into Saturday, the beginning of the weekend, likely a bit more cloud to start the morning, some mist and fog in places, but once again, eventually through the morning, we'll see it clear through, and by the afternoon, wall-to-wall blue skies, plenty of sunshine, but still a chance we could see that low cloud lingering across eastern areas, and it remains fairly similar as we turn into Sunday and Monday, with temperatures widely in the low 20s.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24. sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.